Hello everybody out there in YouTube land. This is amateur artist Mark D. Chandler once again from Manland. And I'm shooting this intro here because the video you're about to see is long enough. There's all kind of ways to start fires out there. And I just got finished watching a video by Native Tears. And she took herself and her daughter out there in the woods to have some camping fun. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the reason to go, is to get out there and just have some fun. But they were trying to start a fire using the feather stick technique and an actual ferro rod. Well, when I watched the video, it got me to thinking. I said, you know what, there's a lot of other ways to start fires. So I decided to shoot this quick video for Native Tears, and not just for Native Tears, but anybody who wanted to watch this thing, to try to bring back a true and tried and tested old classic called Charred Punkwood. Charred Punkwood is one of the, I would say it is very infallible to start a fire with it. However, it has its drawbacks as well, but we'll get into that later. Right now, the craze that happened to be jumping across YouTube happens to be Fatwood. And look, I'm not a hater of Fatwood, I'm a total supporter of it. But you know how it is, once that craze starts going around, everybody's talking about Fatwood this, Fatwood that. My goodness, everybody's just infatuated with Fatwood. Well, here in Mississippi, we got Fatwood running out the yin-yang. It's not that impressive to me. I like to make my fire starting a little bit more difficult. That's kind of why I got into this charred punkwood. Now, charred punkwood uses an actual piece of high carbon steel, which you're about to see in the video. And yep, it's rusted. And yep, you can use an old file, you can use a knife, as long as that knife puts off a good spark. And if it's high carbon steel, it's going to work pretty decent. Now, here's the thing. I learned this technique watching YouTube for quite some time, but I actually learned it by getting it in my hands from Stan of Deep South Experience, and he's going to be at the Rendezvous 3. He showed me the technique at the Rendezvous 1. There's a video on that. Donnie Pavellini Outdoors, about a year or so later, I was playing around with this idea, and guess what he did? He was out there walking around in the gravel, and found a rock, picked it up, broke it, and bam! You can use gravel. You don't have to have a piece of flint. Nope, you don't. As long as that rock is sharp and it's strong enough to hit that blade, that steel, and cause that thing to spark, using charred punkwood, yeah, you can sit there and make yourself a fire. That's why I love this technique. It does take a little bit of skill. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's a lot of fun. And I guarantee you, when you and y'all get out there and make your very own fire from charred punkwood, you're going to think, man, this is the best thing in the world. At least I do. It's just fun. I mean, we're making sparks. It's a lot of fun. I don't have to worry about a ferro rod trying to make a spark. But I like ferro rods. They make a lot of sparks. The video you're about to see, here it is. And please note, the material that I'm using is very, very, very less than perfect. I mean, it's horrible. But with this technique of the charred punkwood, you're not going to see me start it with a ferro rod. That was definitely a failure, like I knew it would be. But with the charred punkwood material, it works. Native Tears. I just watched your video. This is Manland 121. And I watched you showing your daughter about the feather stick technique. Fantastic, great technique. And I just want to show you something just for folks out there that believe in Fatwood and Fatwood alone. Now, she wasn't using Fatwood. And around here in Mississippi, we can get Fatwood all day long. We also have something called pine straw. Now, this is pine straw from Bones Yard. And this is not fresh fallen pine straw. This is stuff that's on the ground, and it's the worst stuff to use when it comes to pine straw. But for trying to start a fire, there's something that I have to say that I've got countless negativities about. Is about using a pocket knife on your ferro rod, and more importantly, using the sharp edge as opposed to the spine. Now, Native Tears used a striker, and according to what I saw in the video, The ferro rod worked very, very well, and the striker itself worked very, very well. However, this right here is one of those, I can't remember the name of it. I'll post it here in the description. There it is. That's the name brand. But it has a built-in striker, and you place it against the, it's a little channel. Try to get it here in the video. So a little small channel that fits in there, and then you strike the ferro rod, you know, and it will work. However, there's a much better technique for that, and that's using your pocket knife. And this is where I constantly get all the absolute negative comments about people cringe when they see you taking the sharp edge of your blade on your knife and you're using it to strike the ferro rod, which is a guaranteed way, not the, as I call it, segregated edges that puts grooves in your ferro rod, but actually using the smooth part of your blade. Now folks, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. This is a pocket knife. I know how to sharpen a pocket knife. This is everyday use. I could use the backside spine, but you see, it's not as effective as it is on the sharp end. Now I'm talking about survival situations. That's what I'm talking about. If you need to get a fire started, if the backbone of your blade is not at a good 90-degree angle and is not sharp, then use the sharp edge of your blade. What else are you going to use it for? Okay, we have pine straw. This is off the ground. This is about a year old. It's moisture. I can feel the moisture in it. Pine straw is natural gasoline. It comes from a pine tree. Don't know what particular type of pine, but there it is. It's a pine. And I would process this. What I mean by process, you see green in there. There's some grass in there. There's some leaves. But pine straw, there's even a piece of wood that just fell out, but it's wet. I can feel the moisture in it. But if you take that pine straw and actually process it in your hand and break the materials down, you get a finer pieces of igniting material. Now this pine straw, unfortunately, has a lot of dirt. It has mud. It has mold. It has everything else built upon it. And I'm using the backside of this dog bowl here as a presentation. But you know what? I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm going to put this pine straw up here. Actually, I'm going to turn the bowl up because on Boneyard's porch, it's going to raise hell if I sit there and set a fire on his porch. But that's okay. This is for demonstration purposes only. Get all the excess out here. If you have a good quality ferro rod, this is not a bad ferro rod. It's a very good ferro rod, but it's not super great. And you'll see me make a spark, and it's not going to catch up right off the bat. Okay, there's all kind of techniques for doing this. Making sure I'm still in frame. Yeah. All right. There we go. What it comes down to is frequency of sparks, how hot the sparks are depending on the type of ferro rod you've got, the striker itself, trying to get embers to land in the correct spot at the right moment. That's what it's all about. Now, most people will sit there and go a spark and expect it to light up. That's not going to happen. Notice what I did there. I'm taking the knife and I'm shoving the knife down, and as I do, I'm knocking the bowl, everything out of place. There's another technique that works very well, is by securing your hand, and it's going to be hard for me to do this on camera, but foot's in the way. I'm trying to get position here. Now, hold on. Is to get your knee braced, placing the knife on your hand, on your knee here, something secure, taking the ferro rod and pulling back. Okay? And what that does, instead of pushing your hand down into the bowl and knocking the debris out, is to pull back on the ferro rod like that, which directs your sparks into your tinder. Now, however, you notice this didn't flame up. So I'm going to sit there and tell you something about tinder. It has to be proper. It has to be in the right conditions. It has to be super dry. And if your ferro rod is super hot enough, then it will light your tinder. However, we do not have those conditions here. I had natural gasoline and a ferro rod. A ferro rod that sparks pretty well, but I could not get a fire going. That's why I want to sit there and show this technique right here. Old fashioned, this is a high carbon piece of steel. It's a little bit rusted. A piece of flint. You don't need flint, you just need a sharp rock to create an even weaker spark. Let me show it here on camera. Alright, I don't know if you can see that. It's very erratic. It's nothing like a ferro rod. It's very, very weak. Can you see the sparks on that? It's very, very weak. This technique is guaranteed to get you a fire going. And what it involves, we're not talking char cloth. Char cloth works very, very well with flint and steel. I mean actual flint and steel. And in my experience, you don't have to have a piece of flint. You can get a piece of big old gravel at a gravel road, hit it with another rock, make a sharp point, and it will work on high carbon steel. We're going to talk about charred punkwood. My outdoor tent did. This is rotten wood that's spongy you find out there in the woods. You char it in a piece of tin, aluminum foil, it doesn't matter, but you char that wood. This thing will take a spark like you wouldn't believe. And see the spark that's in there? I had this thing closed up for at least 5 minutes and it's still smoldering from the first attempt. That's how well this thing works. I'm going to turn the camera back on, make sure this thing is completely out to show you what I mean. Now my punkwood is finally out. I tested it before I even started the video. There's nothing glowing in there. I'm gonna blow into it. There's no embers. When you have good quality punkwood, and the key is to have a good piece of steel. Even though I've neglected this one, it's kind of rusty, but it still takes a very good spark. This is a good piece of high quality, I call it high quality, carbon steel. Not a ferro rod. And any rock, I mean any rock will do. Not a piece of flint, a piece of gravel. Break it to where you have a sharp point on it. It won't last as long as a piece of flint, but as long as it makes that spark, like that right there, and you can see we have an ember in there. I'm blowing on it. That's punkwood. That's the power of punkwood. Now you're saying, well, how do we get a fire out of that? It's very simple. That same piece of pine straw that wouldn't light, I'm going to place it down in there. And what I'm going to do is, I'm doing this for the camera. I would normally hold this in my hand, but I'm going to blow on the pine straw. And ow, 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 on my hand. That pine straw that wouldn't light up is eventually going to catch into a flame. You're seeing how damp this is. Ouch. And these are imperfect conditions. Pine straw is natural gasoline. You see how how difficult that was to blow that pine straw into a flame? It was very difficult. And pine straw is natural gasoline when it's in its fresh state. That's the whole point. Now I just let it go out, but now we actually have a fire. I'm being careful here at my brother's house. Let me zoom back out. Oh, that's the end. Out mark. Let it burn down just a little bit. And the reason why I'm letting this burn is because you take that, transfer that to your fire, and then guess what? The charcoal that's left over from the pine straw, once you close the lid, actually adds to your punkwood. It will catch fire. It becomes natural punkwood charcoal type of material. And that's why I love this technique, because I can take a knife which has very, very weak sparks and create a flame. That ferro rod that I had earlier would have ignited that punkwood almost instantly because it was hot enough to do so, but it wasn't hot enough to ignite the pine straw that I was using. That's what I'm trying to teach people out here in the world of YouTube. There's multiple ways of starting a fire. You just got to understand the techniques and the reasons behind it. Me personally, I love this charred punkwood. When it comes to char cloth is a very, very good resource, but it's not natural. Yeah, it's man-made material, but it's not natural. All I got to do is lay this on top of it, you know, and I can get this char cloth to ignite and blow that into a flame with another bird's nest. It's very good material. However, it's not natural. It's not something that I'm going to always be able to replicate and have with me. Punkwood, on the other hand, you can find that everywhere in the woods. Any type of wood, basically any type of wood that is dry, dead, and in that state of sponginess, you can char that once you have an open fire. And you say, well, I just used it. Well, collect more, put it in a container, put that back on the same fire, you have more for later on. You just created charred punkwood and you're good to go. Now this video is not to sit there and give ultimate praise to charred punkwood. That's not what this video is about, and I'm not making that statement. Charred punkwood also has its limitations out there in everyday use, but it's another alternative to creating a fire that happens to be fun. But I will state this, now you can quote me on this. For me to find punkwood versus fatwood in the woods, I'm going to find a lot more punkwood than ever. However, it will not be in the charred state. So I need some type of fire to get it in that ready state to make it work. Now there's a lot of other materials out there that you can spark from a Flint and Steel combination, not Ferro Rod, but an actual Flint and Steel, like a horse hoof fungus, if you happen to have that in your area and things of this nature. So learn all the techniques, whether it's the fire row, that's the cotton ball and say some ash. Learn all the techniques. I mean, if you're on the side of the road and you're in your car and your car has died on the side of the road and you've got a newer type of car, which a lot of us seem to have, and they don't have that cigarette lighter in there where you punch it in and it glows red and you can put it up to something to make it combust so you can build your fire outside the car. You need to learn how to make a fire using the battery from your car. I mean, it's just about fire starting techniques. Every fire starting technique out there is worth learning, practicing, and getting used to it. Get that skill set in there. Charred punkwood, one of my favorites. It's not the best, but it is indeed one of my favorites. Until next time, amateur artist Mark D. Chandler once again from Manland. Wishing you and y'all a very happy YouTube experience out there. And remember this. Chuck Norris may be a badass man, but I gotta give it to Clint Eastwood because he said, go ahead punk, make my day.
I love that, man.
I like it. Bones over there, he had to jump in on this video, didn't he? Yeah, you know he did. You know, that's my brother over there. I kick his ass one damn day. He didn't kick my...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, boss. Say it.
Go ahead, punk. Make my day. Oh, I loved it. I loved him in what's that last movie come out with? Unforgiven?
Oh, yeah.
I don't deserve to die like this. Like, deserves and it got nothing to do with it. I'm gonna have to use that, man. Damn.